there are a lot of people who talk about using JavaScript and FileMaker. They don't use those words. I've kind of, kind of almost trademarked those, but not quite. Um, but the way that I work this, let's see if I can close this, is just remove the chat for a minute. Is that I have I'm using VS Code over here. I have a whole development environment that is set up in a certain way so that I can write my code over here. I can see it render over here inside of the web viewer. And then when I'm ready to, I can run a little command down here in here. It says npm run deploy to FM. It takes all my code and it bundles it up and it sticks it into a record with that name. And here's all that code that will then run this integration. So this is like the basics. I call this develop, render, and deploy because I am developing the code together. I'm developing the code over here. I'm rendering it in the web viewer over here. And then when I'm ready to, I can deploy it so that everybody who uses the system can access the code. And so this whole setup, this FileMaker file contains a bunch of scripting that I use to do this work. It contains the code base, and it just contains a lot of the automations that as a FileMaker developer I need. There are lots of FileMaker developers who still think that like when I first started, I would write all of my code into a text field and then I would put that into the web viewer. That's become really hard to do, and it is kind of silly to do when you have a nice code editor and you have the connection between FileMaker and the code editor, that's automatic. So this is what I find valuable. Again, there's lots of people that have different opinions on it, but this is what I find valuable and I find the most useful. Until FileMaker gives us a way to stick this code inside of the guts of FileMaker of our app, we have to stick it somewhere, and I'm choosing at the moment to put it into a field of a record of a table and then access that the code in many different ways. We're FileMaker developers, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go find the code, go find the widget by giving it a name, just doing a quick old find and grabbing the code out of the HTML. So that is my progress. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make this accessible to FileMaker developers. I wanted to make this understandable so that then you as a FileMaker developer could go, oh, well, he's doing it this way, but I know FileMaker as well, so I'm going to try it a different way, and I'm going to put the code somewhere else, and I'm going to do this and that. And that's perfectly fine. I want to give everybody a starting point and then let them use their creativity and ingenuity to update this and change it as they need. So yeah, so that's what I'm
I
here
love
for, is to get someone started on it.
I love it. And I agree with you. I heard you kind of make that argument in one of the videos I was watching. Just put it in a field that's like, it put it in your UI file in a field in its
Yep.
own thing, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm curious, like, what if you had to steel man the next strongest argument, what would you say like the next place to put that is?
That's a good question. Field is a good place to put it. Some people will take this code and they will copy it and possibly put it into an insert text field. But the problem is that we get a character limit. There is a way to go around this, and I think in the newest version of FileMaker, they've increased this number so that it's not 30,000 characters anymore. It's like 5 million characters or something. So this is a place where a lot of people put it. There's one guy out there who will take his his HTML, and he'll split it into multiple insert text script steps and then combine them all. But to me, none of that is efficient. None of that is efficient because the only thing that I can really do is I can automatically stick code in here into this field from the development environment. Um,
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, just that demo, you're like, oh, look, I can make a change and deploy it in 30
yeah,
seconds.
yeah, yep. So that's the whole point of this. And again, this is a starting point, but Brad, you are using this and you haven't deviated much from this, have you? This
From the
whole
way that
setup?
you do the,
Yeah,
no, not at all.
not
Yeah.
at all.
It took me a minute at first. When I first got in it, I was doing like a copy the code over to uh, insert from
Yeah.
text or whatever. But once I made that other, once I switched to the way you do it, I'll never go back.
And Brett and Michael, how about you, man? You are you doing much JavaScript and have you deviated much from this overall template?
Yeah, I still use your system throughout. Quite honestly, it's very good. I'm not up to date with your latest innovations, but that's my go-to way of handling JavaScript in FileMaker.
Yeah.
Well done. Very good.
I
So
have to
yeah,
find that out.
so the whole point of this is to just make it as easy as possible. If I wanted to come in here and make a change to, let's just go to this function. I'm using, let's say the client doesn't like these colors. I could come down here, find my color. We did this last week, but I'll D3 colors. They say I want all blues, and so I'll be like, okay, let's go find the colors, the category schemes, and let's do the chromatic categories. There we go. We'll just do the blues. We'll do interpolate blues. Let's see. Oh, scale sequential. Here, let's just copy this. All I want are the blues. I'll be like, okay, let's put the blues in. There we go. Now I stop over here and I run that deploy process again, and it will update that widget. So now I don't need VS Code, and everybody who logs in can see this change made. So it's a lot easier to change. So yeah, that's if I were to have broken this code into multiple insert text script steps or and the thing about this too, I'll mention this too is with this idea, I'm using a modern way of doing web development. In the past, before we had the ability to do this, our HTML code, and our JavaScript code was just everything was all in one long string. Um, we might be linking to other libraries, but here what I'm doing is I'm separating out some functions that create the bar chart so that my initial index.js file is not that large, but it's got links to other functions that do the work. And so this is a modern way of development. Whenever I create a website, I have lots of files, lots of components, lots of files with extra functions in them, and I'm importing them into other files. But when this is all bundled up for FileMaker, all of this still turns into one long stream. So this would be impossible to do. Developing in a modern web development way would be pretty impossible to do, not using a setup like this. So
And
that's
you know, something that I found, Jeremy,
yeah,
is like when I looked into a library and I was like, oh, I really want that Brinton scheduler. I got their download package and it looks very much like what you're working with here. And I was like, geez, how do I turn this into FileMaker? Because I use Google Charts.
yep,
And then I tried Full Calendar, and both of those, the code is hosted on a CDN or something like that, I
yep,
suppose, if I
yep.
understand that correctly. And so then, as soon as I needed to put all the code into my system, is immediately where I got funneled straight into your process here. So I think you're positioned very, very well to, be the fulcrum here.
I hope so. I mean, AI is taking over creating this stuff, but you still need the structure. You still need a framework around it in order to make this work. So, yeah, I think this is the most efficient way to work with it. And, you know, there's lots of there's lots of lots of discussions about this. Someone recently asked, what's the best way to get data into it from FileMaker? I have a way that I do it. Other people have other ways. We can look into those, and we talk about that here in office hours a lot. So if you're able to attend these, you'll likely hear that conversation. But yeah, this is the environment, and I'm pretty happy with it. I haven't changed it much in the last 6 or 7 years. I did update how it builds the code. I put in a modern building system. Um, I built this widget.config.js, a little file that holds the metadata of it. It tells us what the new widget name is. And Eric, let me just show you this from scratch. Let's just get rid of everything. I can go to terminal and I'll make this big here. And I can just start a new one from scratch in a heartbeat. So first of all, I'll change directory into a folder that I always put my stuff in. And then I'm going to type in a command called npx at integrating magic, create JS and FM widget. And this will run through a little process. What is this called? This is called, scheduler new. And it can answer some questions. I can pick the framework I want to use, and then it creates everything I need. CD, scheduler, new, code. And now I have all that I need to get started with this. So this is good stuff. I enjoy it. I use this every day when I create widgets for people or when I play around with JavaScript. That's how I do things. So cool.
I'm
So welcome.
sold.